Beyond the Deck presents Guide to the Devil. The Devil is the 16th card in the major arcana of a tarot deck. It is typically illustrated as a horned figure seated above two chained people, often beneath a dark sky, with an inverted torch burning downward. Though the chains appear restrictive, they remain loose enough to be removed, suggesting captivity sustained by fear, desire, or unconscious choice. This card represents attachment, temptation, and the loss of freedom that emerges through unchecked impulses. Symbols often include the horned figure, primal power, and the shadow self, the chains, bondage and limiting patterns, the two figures, desire and dependence, and the inverted torch, energy directed toward material urges. Together, they portray the forces that bind us: pleasure and fear, freedom and dependence, appetite and consequence. The card evokes intensity rather than simple evil, a confrontation with what has been denied, hidden, or given power. Release here comes not through avoidance, but through honest awareness and the courage to reclaim choice. The Devil reminds us that chains may feel permanent, yet recognizing them is the first step toward liberation. The Devil embodies temptation, attachment, and shadow awareness, inviting honesty about unhealthy patterns, courage to face desire without surrendering control, and faith that every conscious choice carries within it the quiet power to loosen chains, restore freedom, and reclaim personal authority. Temptation. The Devil stands as the magnetic force of temptation, the shadow that draws hidden desires into the light. It is not simply the presence of evil or corruption, but the powerful pull of attachment, the instinctive hunger that can cloud awareness while revealing what secretly holds power over us. Here, we are reminded that not every chain is placed upon us by another, and that some forms of captivity are sustained through fear, pleasure, or unconscious choice. The Devil does not conceal our desires. It intensifies them, allowing obsession and dependency, control and surrender, to confront us with the truth of what we have allowed to govern our lives. Its sacred essence lives in the understanding that temptation reveals vulnerability, that attachment grows where awareness is absent, and that freedom begins when the shadow is honestly faced. Even within desire, there is wisdom, and within every chain, an invitation to recognize that it may be loosened. The Devil is the consuming fire of the journey, the temptation that tests personal freedom. It is the reminder that awareness breaks illusion, that honesty restores power, and that every confrontation with the shadow is not a punishment, but a passage into deeper liberation within the eternal struggle between desire and choice. Attachment. Attachment is the unseen chain of desire, the dependence that begins when comfort or pleasure gains power over us. It is not always harsh, but seductive and familiar as choice becomes compulsion. The Devil teaches that attachment is imposed with our participation. It grows as fear, craving, and habit begin to shape us. It asks for honesty and awareness, revealing that freedom begins through recognition, not denial. There is intensity in attachment. It unfolds through temptation, repetition, and avoidance, the tightening of chains, the surrender of choice. At its core, the Devil carries a simple truth. Awareness creates the space where liberation can begin. Nothing needs to remain hidden. It can be faced, inviting the soul to loosen its bonds, reclaim its power, and move freely within the rhythm of life. Shadow awareness. Shadow awareness is the recognition of what lives beneath the surface, where hidden desires, fears, and impulses influence our choices. It is not condemnation, but revelation, a direct and necessary encounter. This awareness exposes attachments, compulsions, and patterns at their root. The Devil does not create these chains, nor does it make them impossible to remove. Shadow awareness asks for honesty, courage in the face of temptation, and the strength to reclaim power once surrendered. It unfolds in discomfort, desire, and places where denial has obscured the truth. Yet within that darkness, something essential can be understood. When shadow awareness completes its work, what emerges is not a purified version of the self, but a freer expression of being, conscious, empowered, and ready to choose with greater truth within the tension between desire and freedom. The devil speaks to the powerful pull of attachment, the hidden desires, fears, and compulsions that influence our choices from beneath the surface. It reminds us that the forces which bind us are not always imposed from outside, but can grow through temptation, dependency, and unconscious surrender. This card teaches that freedom does not come through denial, but through recognition, through facing the patterns that restrict us and understanding why we continue to feed them. The devil reveals rather than conceals, offering wisdom through honesty, shadow awareness, and personal responsibility. To walk with the devil is to confront temptation without surrendering choice, to recognize where pleasure has become dependence, where fear has become control, and where familiar patterns have quietly limited freedom. It is an invitation to face desire, reclaim personal power, and loosen the chains that no longer serve us. Through this awareness, illusion weakens and choice returns, each truth exposing a hidden attachment, each conscious decision drawing us closer to the deeper freedom of who we are capable of becoming. Keywords. Upright keywords: temptation, attachment, desire, materialism, addiction, obsession, dependency, control, restriction, bondage, unhealthy patterns, shadow self, fear, manipulation, excess, power struggles, loss of freedom, self-imposed limitations, confronting the shadow. Reversed keywords: liberation, breaking free, self-awareness, releasing attachments, overcoming addiction, reclaiming power, independence, resisting temptation, setting boundaries, empowerment. Meanings of symbols and colors on the devil. 1. The horned figure represents the shadow self, primal instincts, temptation, and material desire. 2. The inverted pentagram symbolizes the material world dominating spiritual awareness. 3. The loose chains represent self-imposed restrictions and attachments that can ultimately be removed. 4. The chained figures symbolize dependency, unhealthy relationships, addiction, and surrendered personal power. 5. The inverted torch represents destructive passion, uncontrolled desire, and energy directed toward excess. 2. The raised and lowered hands symbolize the illusion of power and the manipulation of forces above and below. Black shadow, fear, mystery, materialism, and the hidden aspects of the self. Red temptation, passion, desire, anger, and uncontrolled impulses. Gray restriction, emotional heaviness, stagnation, and feeling trapped. Yellow awareness, intellect, personal power, and the possibility of recognizing the truth. The devil is a powerful symbol of temptation, attachment, and shadow awareness. Its meaningful colors and symbols weave together to express desire, restriction, and the wisdom that arises through honesty and conscious recognition. It speaks to temptation as both teacher and warning, offering insight through confrontation and creating a foundation of awareness, personal power, and deeper freedom, with the self and the hidden path revealed clearly through shadow awareness itself. The devil, when drawn upright in a tarot reading, embodies the essence of temptation, attachment, and shadow awareness. It represents desire, dependency, and the loss of freedom that occurs when hidden urges or unhealthy patterns influence our choices. This card encourages honesty and self-awareness, suggesting that now is a time to confront excess, to recognize where fear, pleasure, or control has gained power, and to understand the chains restricting personal freedom. In addition, the devil signifies obsession, materialism, and the forces that arise from the unexamined shadow. It reminds us that desire is not inherently evil, but that freedom requires conscious choice, responsibility, and the courage to face what has been denied. When this card appears, it often indicates a period of confrontation, an invitation to face your attachments, reclaim your power, and recognize the patterns shaping yourself or your situation, knowing that awareness and honesty can loosen the chains and guide you toward liberation and the next stage of your unfolding path. The devil, when drawn in reverse, speaks to liberation, self-awareness, or breaking free from unhealthy attachments. It suggests reclaiming power, confronting dependency, or recognizing the chains that have limited choice, often arising through addiction, fear, manipulation, or patterns that can no longer remain hidden. This reversal draws attention to where freedom may be returning. It highlights moments when temptation loses its influence, when unhealthy bonds are questioned, or when control and dependency are finally recognized, creating awareness instead of unconscious restriction. It may point to a time when release feels uncomfortable, when familiar patterns are tough to leave and independence feels out of reach. Yet beneath this discomfort lies an important message. The chains can be loosened, but liberation requires honest awareness. The devil reversed invites courageous self-inquiry, to notice where attachment has shaped your choices, to resist destructive impulses, and to reclaim personal power as an act of freedom. It reminds you that life begins to open again when patterns are brought into awareness, creating space for independence, clarity, and conscious forward movement on your path. Journal questions that can help you learn and understand the devil card more deeply. What are the main symbols and images on this card, and what do they represent? Analyzing the card's imagery can help you grasp its underlying themes and messages. Look for colors, objects, and figures, and research their traditional meanings in tarot. What is the traditional meaning of this card in a reading? Understanding the card's conventional interpretation can provide a foundation for its use in readings. This includes both upright and reversed meanings if applicable. How does this card relate to the other cards in its suit or major arcana? Identifying the card's position within the larger structure of the tarot deck can offer insight into its role and significance. Compare it to other cards in its suit or sequence. What are some common themes or life situations this card might represent? Reflect on how the card's meaning can be applied to real-life scenarios. This helps in connecting the card to personal experiences and readings. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Find us on Facebook.